311. 311. 311. 9999999. 311. 311. Daf Yomi is today and every day, every single day. 1511 Jerusalem Standard Time. Nice. Makos, page 17b, top of the page. Rather, the verse comes to teach only with regard, now on the top of 17b. The verse comes to teach that only with regard to one who partakes of the flesh of a burnt offering after the sprinkling, even inside the courtyard that he is flogged. Amar Rava says, Diliada ime kerabi Shimon telid ve'ila elo telid ve'afal gav di'it lehu pircha. Rava says, with regard to Rabbi Shimon's statement in the Braita, with regard to anyone whose mother is bearing a child who is like Rabbi Shimon, she should bear that child, and if not, it is preferable that she does not bear him at all. Rava was so impressed by Rabbi Shimon's statement that he praised him and characterized him as the model of a wise man. Rava added, and I say this even though there is a refutation for each of his conclusions. What are the refutations? It's kind of a backhanded compliment, right? It's like, he's a great guy, but all of his statements can be poked holes in them. I mean, it's kind of like hard to understand what he was saying there. But anyway, what is the stringency of first fruits vis-a-vis second tithe produce? It is that first fruits are forbidden to non-priests who are permitted to eat second tithe produce. That can be refuted. On the contrary, second tithe produce is more stringent than first fruits in that it is forbidden to an acute mourner, meaning one whose close relative died that day, which is not the case with regard to first fruits, according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. See Yevamot 73b. שכן טעונים מתן דמים ואמורים לגבי מזבח אדרבה מעשר חמור שכן טעונים כסף צורה. And what is the stringency of a thanks offering and a peace offering vis-a-vis second tithe produce? It is that the thanks offering and the peace offering require the placement of blood and sacrificial portions upon the altar. That can be refuted. On the contrary, second tithe produce is more stringent than the thanks offering and the peace offering in that the redemption of second tithe produce requires money minted into a coin. A disqualified thanks offering and peace offering, like other disqualified offerings, may be redeemed with any object of equal value. שכן קדושתו מרחם אדרבה, תודה ושלמים חמורים שכן טעונים צמיחה ונסכים ותנופת חזה ושור. And what is the stringency of a firstborn offering vis-a-vis a thanks offering and a peace offering? It is that the sanctity of the firstborn takes effect from the womb, while the other offerings are concentrated by their owners. That can be refuted. On the contrary, a thanks offering and a peace offering are more stringent in that they require placing hands on the head of the offering before its sacrifice, and libations and the waving of the breast and the thigh, which is not the case with regard to a firstborn offering. שכן קודשי קדושים אדרבה בכל חמור שכן קדושתו מרחם. And what is the stringency of a sin offering and a guilt offering vis-a-vis a firstborn offering? It is that a sin offering and a guilt offering are offerings of the most sacred order. That can be refuted. On the contrary, a firstborn offering is more stringent in that its sanctity takes effect from the womb, not from consecration by its owner. ומה יכולת אוילה מחטס Yehoshua? שכן כליל אדרבה. חטס ירשים חמירי שאין מחפרי. And what is the stringency of the burnt offering vis-a-vis a sin offering and a guilt offering? It is that is burnt in its entirety upon the altar, and no part of it is given to the priests. That can be refuted. On the contrary, the sin offering and the guilt offering are more stringent in that they atone for one's sins, and a burnt offering is brought as a guilt offering. And all of those matters listed in the price are more stringent than the burnt offering, because there are two consumptions with regard to each of these matters, as they are consumed upon the altar and consumed by their owner and the priests, whereas the burnt offering is consumed in its entirety upon the altar. Dilmai disvirale lidei misares le likra v'daresh le. The Gemara asks, rather, what is the meaning of this statement of praise with regard to anyone whose mother is bearing a child who is like Rabbi Shimon? She should bear that child, and if not, it's preferable that she is not bearing at all. Ultimately, all of his derivations can be refuted. The Gemara answers, the praise is based on the fact that in order to arrive at what he himself holds, he transposes the verse and interprets it. Rabbi Shimon does not interpret the verse from beginning to end. Rather, he begins with the final case of first fruits in order to arrive at the desired conclusion. Rava was impressed with Rabbi Shimon's interpretation. De'amar onshin min hadin, ein masirin min hadin, isura be'alma. The Gemara asks with regard to Rabbi Shimon, who derives prohibitions not written in the Torah by means of an a fortiori inferences. And does one derive a prohibition from an a fortiori inference? But even according to the one who says that if there is a prohibition written explicitly in the Torah, one administers punishment based on an a fortiori inference, one does not derive a prohibition from an a fortiori inference. The Gemara answers, Rabbi Shimon does not derive prohibitions for which one is flogged from those inferences. Rather, he derives a mere prohibition. Rabbi Shimon Chamisha isurin havu. The Gemara asks, but doesn't Rava say, with regard to a non-priest who ate the flesh of a burnt offering before sprinkling of its blood outside the walls, according to Rabbi Shimon, he is flogged with 5 sets of lashes. 1 because he is a non-priest, 1 for eating a burnt offering, 1 for eating the flesh of an offering before its blood was sprinkled, 1 for eating offerings of the most sacred order outside the temple courtyard, and 1 for eating sacrificial food outside of Jerusalem. Apparently, Rabbi Shimon holds that all these are actual prohibitions for which one is flogged. The Gemara answers, it does not mean that one is actually flogged. Rather, it means that they are 5 prohibitions. The Gemara asks, didn't we learn the Mishnah? And these are the people who are flogged by Torah law. Among them is a priest who eats first fruits before the recitation of the accompanying Torah verses. And the Gemara established that the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon.